Happy Mother's Day. Who are the mothers? Happy Mother's Day, guys. Yeah? Cool. All right. Well, I'm here to talk about. I'm sure most of you have done some kind of diet. You want to lose weight, you want to be fit, be healthy, and you keep trying all these things. Why don't you sit here in the. You want to sit here? All right. Okay. Um, So what I'm gonna talk about today is not your conventional low calorie, low fat diet. I'm gonna talk about something different. So I hope you guys keep an open mind and you can sit through the entire process. If you have any questions, I don't wanna go in details because it's very scientific, so I don't wanna talk about too much sciencey. That's boring. But if you have any questions about it, you can email me. I'll give you my email at the end of my talk. So okay, so let me introduce myself. Okay. So who am I? I'm not some expert nutritionist or a doctor. I'm actually just a regular girl who became a diet nut, like who became obsessed with being fit, who became obsessed with exercise and being strong because um uh well, let me introduce myself. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, lead instructor as an indoor cycling. I'm an indoor cycling instructor at Ride Revolution. Um, and recently, I just became an ambassador for Adidas, and also what I'm about to talk about, which is Carb Nite solution. This was written by a physicist, like a physicist, like a scientist who eventually became also like a nut freak and a diet freak. So he became obsessed with being healthy, getting muscle gains, getting stronger, and getting the dream body that we always wanted. Okay, so what's my story? How did I become obsessed with fitness? Maybe 6 years ago, I started, I enrolled myself into dentistry, and at the same time, I got into jujitsu with my boyfriend. So I really fell in love with it, and I got hooked. But my dentistry was super brutal, and the time, the schedule, I had to be in school for 12 hours a day. I didn't have enough time to work out. So, so I gave up like my social life. It was basically jujitsu and dentistry. So I tried everything. I entered myself in this competition and I became obsessed with it. Like I was like, how come I'm working out, I'm not even going out anymore. I'm dedicating everything to working out, eating what I thought before was eating well, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't getting stronger. I wasn't feeling the energy that I was promised. So I was getting frustrated. I thought to myself, what was lacking? So I thought to myself, after all that research, it was nutrition. Like I was lacking nutrition. Like I didn't have enough um, food because I was restricting myself from all the food that I thought was bad. So yeah, I was doing the normal diet, eating carbs first thing in the morning, low fat. You guys all know that, cutting calories. But what I didn't know was that these things, I was actually torturing my body. I was making my body weaker than I actually thought I was doing. So it became my ultimate desire to excel in that sport, which is jiu-jitsu. And it drove me to seek better way solution to to improve my strength training and my nutrition. So, after that I tried so many things. That was 6 years ago. And 6 years ago I from then on I became vegan. I thought meat was the enemy. I thought meat was the one that would cause cancer. So I stopped eating meat. I became vegan for a year. And then I that was a mistake because I felt weaker. That was my fattest I think ever because I turned so much on carbs. I got so much energy from carbohydrates like beans, legumes, everything, rice, potatoes. So I wasn't getting enough nutrition. I wasn't getting enough energy. And then I turned to paleo. I started eating meat again. There's a paleo booth down there, and that one really helped me. I felt the difference when I started introducing meat into my body. I felt stronger. My skin got better. My training, my mind was much sharper than I was a year ago when I was vegan. But it still wasn't enough. And then I came across this book called Wheat Belly, and I became obsessed with it. I became gluten-free. So that also helped. I shed off a little weight, but it wasn't, at this time, I got the strength already from paleo, from eating clean, but it wasn't enough. Now I was obsessed with looking good. Like I wanted to look good. I wanted to get the muscle. I wanted to get abs for my bikini pictures. So I still kept researching until last year. So I was paleo for about 2-3 years, I think, and gluten-free for 2 years. And then last year, I came across this thing called ketogenic diet. Have you guys heard of that? It's a ultra low carb. Basically, you rely on fat for energy instead of carbs. So you completely eliminate all the carbs in your system, and then you introduce fat, right? I mean, our whole lives we were taught, these things are, fat is bad, you should lay off the fat, carbs is good. So the whole time I was like, what? So I read about it and I was obsessed, and I tried it out since I was a diet freak. Like I go through all these things. Like even before, I was obsessed with doing detox diets. Like every month I'd go on like a 1 week juicing cleanse because I thought it would cleanse my system, but it really didn't. So now I tried the ketogenic diet for a month, and honestly, it was, out of all the things that I've tried, and I've tried a lot, ketogenic diet was actually the best thing that happened to my life. Like I actually got leaner. You know how girls are usually afraid of bulking up when they lift weights, but I need to lift weights. But I didn't want to look, stocky and big. But with the ketogenic diet, I started getting leaner. My muscles started showing, but it wasn't the kind of muscle that I wanted. It was flat. I looked too skinny. Actually, I also kind of felt weak. I thought my body was adjusting to it. So I was, I'll give it another try. So, after all that, because I like to research, and I'm always in front of my laptop researching about like what's the best way, more efficient way to get energy. I'm just obsessed with getting energy because, well, my job requires me to have a lot of energy all the time. Like I'm not even allowed to be tired, basically, because when I'm up there on the podium teaching an indoor cycling class, I have to look super energetic. I have to look strong. I have to do it with the class, and sometimes I do it twice a day, 6 times a week. So that takes a lot of toll on your body. Plus, I have jiu-jitsu. Plus, I have weight training. So you can imagine how much activities I have to do. And if I don't get the right energy for my body, I'm just gonna fall flat and like call in sick maybe every 3 days. So we've all been there. Diets always promise us that we'll get our dream body. Sorry. So, with all these things, like I talked about paleo, being gluten-free, being vegan, they all promise us, if you follow everything. Have you guys heard of those Atkins diet, those GM detox, and they all have their own products, and they make you buy it. And we, as consumers, and wanting to get the bodies that we want, we start buying all the supplements, all the products that they give us, because if we follow it, to the book and follow it religiously, we will eventually be sexy. And they always promise, if you do this, if you do that, if you eat at the right time, if you take all the supplementations, you're gonna end up with a body that they show, whatever, like those sexy bodies. But I mean, we've all been there, and it's always destined to fail. right? I've tried so many things. I mean, I'd get good results after, a few months, a few weeks. I get confident, but then after a while, I'll plateau. Have you guys experienced that when you guys are trying to lose weight? For the first few months, it's gonna be good. Like, oh yeah, I'm getting the body that I want. But then after a while, you're gonna start plateauing, and it's like, wait, I'm doing everything correctly. How come it's still not working? What have you guys tried so far? Have you tried calorie counting? Those, sorry, come here. Cereals for, I'll get to that. Instead of carbs, actually, okay, okay. I'm gonna deviate a little bit. What she said is a common misconception. People say I'd rather eat cornflakes cereals because it gives fiber and it's good whole wheat carbs, whole wheat cereal, which is good. But everything, basically, rice, bread, cereal, whatever it is, as long as it's in the carbohydrate family, it still will be translated in the body as carbs. So it doesn't matter, even if you say, oh, my carbs today is just a piece of fruit, add still sugar. So no matter what, rice, bread, whole wheat, multigrain, black rice, red rice, anything, whole wheat pasta, those are all carbs. When we eat it, it gets translated in the body as carbohydrates, which then turns into insulin, and which insulin tries to, if we don't use it all up, it becomes our stored fat. So yeah, no, eating cereal in the morning. So yeah, I'll get to that. Um, Also, another thing that all these diets promise to improve this thing called the syndrome X. This is usually like a collection of metabolic diseases, so insulin, high blood pressure, high triglyceride levels, high LDL cholesterol levels, HDL, and the only thing that we can actually see in when we look at the person is obesity. Like when we see a lot of fat people, and all these diets always promise, okay, if you follow it, promise these things are all gonna improve. But that's another thing. To improve all these things will be a complete different set of diet, complete different set of system. There's no such thing as a one-stop diet that will cure all kinds of diseases. No, it doesn't work that way. So what I'm talking about today is basically really fat loss. And with fat loss, these things will eventually improve, but not because of the diet. It's because of the fat loss. I'm going to keep emphasizing that. I'm going to talk about fat loss, not weight loss. So I'm going to try to change your perspective about losing weight, because it's really more important to lose fat than to lose weight. So here's an example. I always hear girls come up to me and say, "Oh, Ida, how come I'm losing I'm losing weight, but I still feel like I'm still big. Like I don't shrink." It's because, look, these two things are both 1 pound, 1 pound of muscle and 1 pound of fat. You see the difference. I mean, it's very obvious. 1 pound of fat looks much bigger, while a pound of muscle looks a lot smaller. So you can actually weigh 120 pounds of pure muscle and look a lot thinner as compared to a 120-pound woman with no muscle, with just fat in the body, and will look a little bigger. So like sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? Like, why is she so heavy? She's heavier than me, but she looks stronger. She looks leaner. As like me, I'm like what 120, 120. I'm 120 now, and some people get surprised I don't look 120, but it's because I have turned all these fat into muscle. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. This is like my first talk ever in my life. So another thing. So now it's clear. Have I changed your mind? I hope you guys I hope you guys remember this picture as I go along. Another thing that people usually do when they try to lose weight, as I mentioned earlier, is cutting calories. Right? Have you guys tried that? Like you've entered yourself into like a 1,800 calorie per day diet, right? It's like really, it's impossible. And then it works for a few weeks because, my God, you're not even putting enough nutrition in your body. If I'm gonna say that calorie counting will not work because it doesn't work that if, let's say, you take in 1,800 calories per day, it doesn't mean all the other nutritions are gonna get lessened equally, like 1,800 of fat, 1,800 of protein. It doesn't work like that. It's actually, when you eat food, it's a mixture of all these things. So if you restrict your body of the caloric needs, it's gonna go on malnourished. It's gonna become malnourished, and your energy is really gonna suffer. And believe me, I've tried this. For the first 2 months, maybe you'll lose weight and you'll feel confident. But remember that every time you do calorie restriction, that half of the weight actually comes from lean tissue, and that's your muscle. And you don't want to lose muscle because you need muscle to burn fat. So don't be afraid to lose. I always hear that from girls. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to lift weights because lalaki ako, or I'm gonna get big, mukha akong macho or something." It depends on how you. I mean, there are girls who are actually obsessed with getting big, but if you just want to be lean and you want to burn fat, lifting weights should be your go-to. Like, no, I know I'm a cardio freak, but then I also balance it out with a lot of muscle building. So remember that 1 pound of muscle is lost for every pound of fat lost when you do a caloric restrict yourself of calories. And it only takes about 4 days for the caloric restriction to suppress all the major hormones responsible for burning fat. So it's not just, like, eating this will make me healthier, eating this will make me lose weight. It's really not that. As girls, especially for girls, we have a lot of hormones. We all feel that when we have that monthly visitor, we feel bloated, we feel extra fat, we're craving so many things. We have a lot of hormones that are actually can help us, but then all these diets are restricting all those hormones and suppressing it and not allowing our body to burn the fat that it can actually do. So as a result, you're not getting enough calories, you get less energy, less fat is burned even when you're at rest, and less fat moves out of the storage, meaning you don't maximize the energy that you're supposed to be using, your body is supposed to be using, because your body's on starvation mode. It's basically on survival mode. And when that happens, our adipose cells become more active. Adipose cells is also called as fat cells. So the more you restrict your body, the more your body goes on starvation mode, or I call it survival mode, because it's basically just surviving on what's left in your body. Our bodies are going to produce more and more fat cells. So you think now that you're losing weight, but that's actually the water weight. What you don't know is in the cellular level, you're actually getting fatter and fatter because you're losing all the muscle that you could have used to burn fat, and instead it's getting replaced by the fat cells that are now super present in your body because of not eating. So now I'm going to introduce the Carb Nite solution. What is this? It is like a system. This is a feeding system. It's not just a diet that you do for 2 weeks and then, okay, now you'll go back to your normal eating habits. It's not. It's basically altering your life and the way that you eat. It's basically eating smarter. I don't call it like, you don't restrict anything. You will, though, a little bit carbs, but I'll go on detail in a little bit. So Carb Nite solution actually manipulates our body into burning fat exclusively for energy instead of carbs. So we're gonna teach our body to depend on fat for energy instead of carbs. Have you guys ever heard of that theory that you can actually use fat to burn energy? Think of it. Okay, this is what I always use when I explain it to people who don't know what Carb Nite solution is. Imagine yourself stuck in a cave. Let's say you get stuck, like calamity happened and you got stuck inside a cave and there's no food, no water. And we've all heard of those stories where there are survivors after like a week of being stuck in a cave, right? They still survive. Why do you think they survive even with no food, no water? Well, the water is another thing. But with no food, because once our body goes on starvation mode, no more carbs. When our body doesn't have any more carbs in the body to burn, it turns to the stored fats, the ones that we never actually used, right? Because if you keep eating carbs, you don't use all of that. Everything that gets left behind turns to fat. So that's all the bilbil, all the flabby arms, all the big thighs that we have. That's all from the leftover carbs that are now becoming stored fat. So when our body's on survival mode and it's about to die, our body will turn to fat as fuel. So now it's going to fuel your body and actually survive. So you don't actually need carbs every single day, every single meal of the day. Especially, you don't want to eat it first thing in the morning because you can't survive without it. I'll go into that later on. So for the girl old lady over there, she said earlier that she eats carbs first thing in the morning. She eats cereal instead of rice. What if I told you that eating carbs first thing in the morning is the worst thing that you can do for losing weight? That you should actually eat your carbs at night. Would you believe me? No? Or she's nodding her head. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Kellogg. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. I'm sure the name Kellogg sounds familiar to all of you guys. Dr. Kellogg actually started his cereal company not because he was promoting people to lose weight. He was actually promoting something else. He was a very religious man and he was trying to promote, he was anti-sex, basically. He doesn't like, because of his religion, he's trying to stop people from doing it. That was his main purpose for why he came up with the cereal in the morning, because he realized that even meat, at that time he thought meat, seafood, everything, all these proteins are aphrodisiacs and it should be banned from the body. So he kept trying to find ways on that are not like food. He was trying to look for food that's not an aphrodisiac, and he found it in wheat. So he wasn't actually telling people to eat carbs so you can lose weight. He was actually promoting a completely different thing. But then consumers and all these big companies started promoting it as, oh, eat cereal first thing in the morning. You will be healthy and you will get the body that you want. But it's not what he was promoting. Do you have any questions so far? Am I making you guys believe? Okay, so now that because you don't want to, okay, one more thing, why you don't want to spike because carbs, when you eat carbs, you spike your insulin. That's sugar for the body. You spike your insulin levels, and then midday, do you guys feel that sudden drop, like you feel sluggish by lunch? Like you feel so energized when you wake up, you go to work. By lunchtime, you eat rice and your ulam, and then like a juice drink or soft drinks. And then after lunch, you feel so groggy. Do you guys feel that? That's because you spike your insulin already first thing in the morning, and you're gonna end up. It's gonna be a downhill slope from there. So that's why you're gonna feel sluggish. By night, you won't even feel like working out anymore. I'm so conscious. I know someone. Um, so so that's what I'm saying. Don't eat carbs. I'm gonna talk about the diet that I'm promoting later on. But right now I'm just giving you guys facts, making things clear. I hope you I'm making sense. If you have any questions, just feel free to stop me at any point, and I'll try to answer your questions. Okay, so now that we've tackled calorie restriction and not eating carbs first thing in the morning, I'm going to talk about, we're getting nearer. Now I'm going to talk about the ketogenic diet, what I was talking about earlier, which is also what Atkins diet promotes. But then I think Atkins is promoting you restrict all carbohydrates and all sugars from your body for the first few weeks, and then you slowly reintroduce carbs. Have you guys heard of the Atkins diet? Has anyone tried Atkins diet here? No. Okay, well, this one, you go in ketogenic mode. You go in super ultra low carb for a few weeks, and then you start introducing carbohydrates again in your system. And the reviews about this is they get really good results for the first few weeks, and then when they slowly start reintroducing carbs, they start to plateau. That's usually what I hear about like people who do Atkins. So, but all these all these three diets, the both diets, ketogenic and Atkins diet, are actually promoting ultra low carb. This is being ultra low carb is going 30 grams of carbohydrates or less every day. So that you can say goodbye now to your fruits, your sugar, your even if it's coconut sugar, honey, all those things all translate the same way in the body. It's sugar. So like I said earlier, when I was on the ketogenic diet, I felt leaner. I felt like I lost a lot of fat. But it wasn't enough. Like I felt flat. I felt a little weak. So that's when I turned into Carb Nite solution, because for Carb Nite, you go on ultra low carb for 5 to 7 days, and then you spike your insulin at night. And this is not like just eating a piece of bread kind of thing. This is like a 8-hour frenzy of just eating carbs from 6 p.m. till the time you sleep. It's crazy. It sounds crazy, but just keep an open mind. This insulin spike is actually very important because when our body goes on an ultra low carb for 5 to 7 days and there's no more carbs at all, and we reintroduce it to our body, that's the time when all the important, powerful hormones that we have in our body get activated for fat burning. These are just generally your T3, your leptin, insulin, and cortisol. These are very important hormones for fat burning. And if you don't do the insulin spike, these things won't get activated. Am I making sense? Teach, are you there? Yeah, not yet. So, with Carb Nite solution, you're gonna learn 3 things. You will learn how much the body stores water because of carbs. Did you know actually that every gram of carbs stores 2 grams of water? So you can imagine if you eat so much rice, so much bread, you keep bloating until you're full of water. And then during the prep phase, I'm gonna talk about later on, the first initial reaction when you do the prep phase for the Carb Nite solution diet is that you're gonna keep
urinating. Like you're gonna make right decisions, and it's gonna free you from, you know, like when you do your diets, you become suddenly scared of eating out with your friends because you feel like, oh no, that's gonna throw me off my diet. But this diet is actually very, very flexible. You just have to turn to a lot of protein. So that's a lot of steak, a lot of bacon, a lot of eggs. Can you guys believe that bacon can actually help you guys lose weight if you don't eat it with carbs? She's super confused. Are you a bit? Oh, you're vegetarian. Okay. You don't even eat eggs? You do. Okay, so ovo-lacto. How about fish? No. Where do you get your fat for vegetarian? I've always been curious. I've always been curious about where vegetarians get their fat from. Nuts. All right. Oils like olive oil.
Right. Or some fruits like avocado.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love avocado.
Yeah, so natural sources of omega-3s.
Where else can you get that? Beans?
Beans as well, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So for the vegetarian, you have your own sources of fat. I won't promote, but is anyone else a vegetarian in here? No? We all love meat? Okay, because I like meat, sorry. um, so yeah, so you can actually eat, like me, first thing in the morning, I have my accelerator shake. So that's coffee, brewed coffee, or an espresso with whipped cream, or coconut milk, coconut oil or MCT oil, and my protein shake. That's I survive with that for until I last until 3 p.m. I'm usually up already by 6 a.m. And you don't feel like you're hungry. You're actually okay. Like you don't start. I mean, it's one thing to get used to the habit of like not depending on food. It's sometimes we just eat because we feel like, oh, it's time to eat because it's 12 o'clock. Oh, it's 8 a.m. I need to eat. But you don't really have to eat that much throughout the day. So now you're gonna start thinking, okay, what will this do to my body? And your body's gonna start being sensitive when you put in like just a little bit of carbs. When you put yourself into this diet, you'll feel the effects right away. You'll feel sluggish. You'll be so sensitive with like that insulin spike, like you'll really crash. Also, eating carbs at night will give you a better sleep. Like it's amazing. So do you guys want to know how the prep phase works? Get ready. Okay, the 10-day prep phase. If you commit to this diet, you're gonna have to go through a 10-day cleanse. It's not really a cleanse, it's just training your body not to depend on carbs, basically. So for 10 days, you go without carbs. So that's eating a lot of vegetables, a lot of water. This is the time to you really have to keep yourself hydrated. A lot of protein, but you have to keep your carbs under 30 grams. I think that's a little hard for vegetarians, right? Because a lot of your protein sources and your fat also has carbs. Yeah. But you can just throw in a lot of olive oil, a lot of nuts. That's actually pretty good. I have a vegetarian friend who tried the Carb Nite solution, and it really, like, she's so happy with it. But yeah, it's an everyday struggle for her you have to think a little more. Yeah, you have to consider more, because being a vegetarian by itself in the Philippines is hard enough, right? When you eat out, because not a lot of restaurants are vegetarian friendly, but more so if you have this diet. So for 10 days, you stop eating carbs. So no rice. Very, very simple actually. No rice, no fruits, no breads, no potatoes, no sweet potatoes, No, nothing. So it's so you can, but you get to eat a lot of fish, a lot of meat, a lot of bacon, a lot of oils like olive oil, coconut oil, all those things. And it's actually not that bad. It's just a matter of a mindset, like putting your mind into it and telling yourself, okay, I don't need carbs. But here's what I'm gonna warn you: for the first 4 to 5 days, you're gonna feel like this mental cloud. Your brain's not gonna be functioning well. That's because you're gonna feel so weak. You're gonna feel like you haven't slept in like 5 days. You'll feel so miserable for the first 4 days. That's because this is your body going through withdrawals. Because have you guys heard of? I'm sure you guys have heard of like carbs as the body's crack, like body's drug. Like we get addicted to so much carbs. Have you guys heard of that? That if you keep eating more and more sugar, our body will keep craving more and more sugar. So can you imagine taking out all the sugar suddenly for the first 4 days, and it takes the body about 3 days to completely get rid of all the carbs in the system. So after that, your body's really like, oh my God, what are you doing? Give me carbs, give me carbs. But you gotta fight through it. And the only way to do it is eating more protein and eating more fat. Upping your fat will really satiate all the carb cravings. And then here, so it'll get better. Just make sure that you have a lot of carbs, you have a lot of fiber. Also, another thing, fiber is considered a carb, but not for this diet. When you eat a lot of protein and meat and fat, you start getting constipated. So you really need to up your fiber intake. So I usually take the psyllium pills. Yeah, or you can mix it with your food or your water. Also, eating a lot of vegetables will help. A lot of leafy greens, that's your best friend. And then here comes the 10th night. Starting 6 p.m. on the 10th day, when you start your 10th day, you start off eating your normal low carb, ultra low carb meals like bacon and eggs, fish and eggs, or eggs and vegetables. You can slather everything with butter. It's okay it's really okay. Like you can just that's my life. Even my boyfriend who's doing the same diet, sometimes when he gets super low energy, he gets like a stick of butter and he just like eats it. I haven't gone there, but it works for him. A lot of avocado because it's very high fat. So on your 10th night, and this is where it gets really fun, you're gonna do the insulin spike at night, starting 6 p.m. on the 10th day. And this is not like, you have to take it seriously. This is like donuts, go crazy, cheesecake, whatever you've been craving for the past 9 days, go ahead and binge on this night. And it's gonna take a lot of, I know it sounds bogus, it sounds ridiculous, that after all of that, I'm just gonna binge on all these carbs. But you need that insulin spike to raise the level of cortisol, of T3, of your leptin, and your insulin. And these are all responsible for the fat burning. So the fat burning at this time is very active during the first 10 days because your body's already turned to fat for energy. So it's burning fat constantly even if you're not working out. And believe me, within those 10 days, it's going to be so hard for you guys to work out. When I went through my first 10 days, I was miserable. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. But after the 10th night, when you reintroduce carbs, the fat burning at this time will halt a little bit for 2 hours because of the insulin spike. But then for the next 4 days, the fat burning will activate because of the hormones that you've activated because of the insulin spike. And that's very important. So that's your carb night, your 10th night. So what are the rules? Eat plenty of fat. As ridiculous as it sounds, it's very, very important. If you're gonna go on an ultra low carb, and I know a lot of people have gone to this diet, being ultra low carb or even just low carb, but then they always complain that they feel weak, they don't feel like they're strong enough to do their daily activities, it's because they're not eating enough fat. As in, like, I'm talking about like fat from meat, fat from oils, fat from nuts, fat from bacon, fat from olive oil, coconut oil. For me personally, I like getting my fat from avocados, coconut milk, coconut oil, butter. Those are my main sources of fat. And take Carb Nite seriously. Another one more rule is take Carb Nite very seriously. Like, what I mean about seriously is, like, you really eat from 6 p.m. to like 10 p.m. You just eat whatever you want. Pizza, rice that you've been craving. You really have to eat all of that, and you have to continue eating. It's not just a one meal. Remember that it's not a carb meal, it's a carb night. So for the whole night, you'll eat carbs. And another thing, never skip Carb Nite. Most of you guys, since you guys have gone through the 10 days, it's like, what? I'm going to reintroduce it. I'm going to go through all that again. Trust me, after the 10th night, it'll get better. You won't go through because you've already, within those 10 days, you've already trained your body to depend on fat. So your body's not actually dependent on carbs anymore. The carbs that you take in on the 10th night actually will go straight to your muscle. So when you wake up the next day, you'll feel a little fuller, like your skin looks better, your complexion will look a lot better, you'll feel great, you won't need that coffee anymore in the morning. So never skip Carb Night, because people think if they can last 10 days, why not? I'll do it every 10 days, every 14 days, because they think that, the longer they prolong their ketosis, the longer that they'll burn fat. But it's not actually, that's not how it works. You really have to you have to keep spiking that insulin every 5 to 7 nights, just so you can accelerate the fat burning hormones that happens for the next days after the Carb Night. Lastly, never have Carb Night sooner than the 5th night after your last one. So it's every 5 to 7 days. Why? Because as I said earlier, it takes the body about 3 days to deplete itself of the carbohydrates that was stored in the body. So if you eat every 3 nights, you're just gonna keep adding more and more. So you wanna keep using the carbs that you've eaten from the Carb Night and use it up for the rest of the day, for the rest of the days following after that. So basically, that's gonna be your life if you can commit. And this is what I always tell people: if you want results, you have to make some sort of change. You can't make changes. You can't change anything if you don't get out of your comfort zone. So if you want to lose weight, if you want to improve energy, if you want to be more efficient in using your energy and building muscle and feeling strong, whatever it is your goal is, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to try something that works for you. So that's very short, but I was hoping you guys would have questions on like what ultra low carb is. Does anybody have questions? Yes.
Could you share again how the cycle works? So no carb eating for 10 days.
This is just the prep phase.
The prep. And
Yeah.
then on the 10th night, you eat all the carbs.
Yeah.
And then you go
Yeah.
back
The
to
next day you go back to
no carbs.
no carbs.
Yes.
5 to 7 days.
Okay. And then on the 7th night, you eat
Yeah.
carbs
You
again.
can take it on the 5th night,
Okay.
just not less than that. And then and then you reintroduce carbs every 5 to 7 nights, and then you go back to the same cycle. So it's actually not that bad. It's not completely restricting. Imagine a diet that can actually give you guys whatever you guys want to eat. You can have Krispy Kreme every 5 nights. Too much of anything is bad. So this is basically like a compromise. At the same time, you're burning muscle while you're eating good food. It's not that bad. As in, like, I've tried other diets and I've gotten a lot worse than this. Like not having fasting for a week. What's that? the cleanse, the master cleanse. Like you just eat this juice. Have you guys tried that? That's a lot worse than this. So I chose this because at least I can eat. Because I was a fat kid. So I really, really like to eat. And I have that, I wasn't blessed with the genes that just make me automatically fit. You know, like those people who keep eating and they remain thin and they have automatic abs. Not like that. I get fat when I let go. So when I started doing this, it opened a new world for me. Like, what? I can eat anything I want just every 5 to 7 days? Which is not that bad. Did I make it clear for you? Yeah.
Right. And what's the science behind like leaving the 5 days? You mentioned like after the 5 days is when the body really uses up everything.
Yeah. All the carbs.
All the carbs.
So you want to keep depleting that so that your body will turn to your stored fats for fuel. So you're actually not burning carbohydrates anymore when you work out or when you do your daily activities. Even if you don't work out, you're continually burning fat because you don't have carbs in your body. You're tricking your body into turning, you're basically like that person in the cave surviving with no food. So your body's really depending on fat. And once your body gets used to this cycle, it's amazing how strong you'll feel. Like I've never, and I mentioned earlier, like my work plus everything else that I do, if I didn't have this, and I tried it before that, I couldn't survive. Like I had to sacrifice one, but it's so hard not to keep doing what I do. Any more questions?
Ida, when
Yeah.
do you have your heaviest meal for the day?
I have it during lunch. Well, because, okay, so since I recently became an ambassador for this diet because I talked to Kiefer himself. And because of he actually, if you read the book, he doesn't promote a lot of cardio. And my line of work is a lot of cardio. I mean, I teach indoor cycling. Since January, when we opened, I started shrinking and I was losing muscle because cardio does that. If you don't lift and just keep doing cardio, you will lose the muscle and you don't want to lose muscle. So basically what he customized the diet for me, wherein I take more protein during lunch. That's my heaviest meal. But on Carb Nite days, like on my 5th or 7th night, my heaviest is usually at night. But so morning you don't eat, by lunch is your heaviest. But you have to really eat at night even when you're on the ketogenic phase, when you're in the ultra low carb phase, you have to really tell yourself to eat. Because once you get used to not depending on food, sometimes you'll really forget. But it's very important to eat. Do you do a lot of cardio? What kind of exercise do you do?
We both teach yoga.
Oh, cool. Hey. Where? Yoga Plus. Oh, with Cookie. Okay. It's not really, yoga's not really cardio, so I think you can follow the diet. Well, you don't have to customize it. Because for me, I have to, some ketogenic diets will say, if you read it on the internet, they'll always say, eat moderate protein and more fat. And that's very hard to do. And for someone like me who does a lot of cardio, I need a little bit of carbs for my muscle so that it won't shrink and I won't just become flat. So what I do is, because if you have a lot of protein, this is another thing. So it's a lot of, if you have any questions, I'll give my email to make it clear. But I can't discuss everything. There's so many branches. But there's another thing, if you eat a lot of protein on a daily basis and you don't eat carbs, your body, the protein in your body goes through protein neoglucogenesis. This is when the body turns the protein into, it translates it into carbs. So it's gonna activate your insulin again. So right now, what I'm doing is I eat a lot of protein and a lot of fat to trick my body that I'm getting carbs, but I'm really not. And it's been helping a lot. Anything else? She, I love that girl over there. She's like, yeah, you. The one with the headband. She was, yeah. She's been like, wow, I can eat bacon. So any more questions, guys? If you really want to read the book, you can go and buy the book actually online. Yeah, you have a question? Okay. It's called Carb Nite Solution by Jon Kiefer. He's gonna come out with a new book, but it's gonna happen later on. And if you have any questions, you can email me itparas@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy. We can even talk on the phone if you want. But this system is so long that if it would actually probably take me a whole day to talk about every single science, and I don't want to bore you guys because I don't want to make you guys think you guys are back in high school learning chemistry and biology. That's boring. So this is my email. Gmail. So if you want to contact me, just email me here. If you guys are shy to ask questions now and you want to ask it privately, thank you guys for listening. I hope I changed your perspective in some way of not eating too much carbs, because as Filipinos, we always depend on rice. We always have to have rice with everything. But we have to change our ways if we want to improve our bodies. Thank you guys for listening.